All right. So for anybody who is here for their first Q and A, you're in for a treat. I'm so glad you're here. This is your chance to ask any questions that you have about anywhere in this whole process. Anything from deciding on your first organization to getting feedback on some topic ideas to even marketing or, anything at all to do with your CEU trainings. It's also a chance to just run things by everyone, get feedback on anything, talk about anything that's getting in your way. So really anything goes. So before we jump into the Q&A, why don't we just take a brief minute to introduce ourselves since there are several new people here. I'll go first. I'm Michelle. We've probably met by now, but if not, welcome. I am, the creator of this membership, and I'm also a therapist in private practice in Central Ohio. I am still practicing. I also still teach CEUs. I feel like it's really important to still be doing the thing that I am coaching people to do. Um, I have one daughter, 15 and a half. She has her temps. Oh, that's a whole fun new adventure. And I love knitting. I row on a rowing team and I help people become CEU providers. So that's me. Who wants to go next? Go ahead, Jen.
You guys hear me okay? Yes, yes. Okay. I live in Maine, so that's where I live currently. I host a podcast, which is the Therapist Burnout podcast. Just Google therapist and burnout. I'm in your podcast player. So you can find me there. And so I've been podcasting probably for like 3 years, and I've thought about a CEU kind of around some of the topics that I podcast on. So I've thought about should I do that? Is it advantageous for me to do it or not? Um, yeah, so that's some of what I think I have around CEU. So I definitely need some ideas about like the topics. I think there's definitely themes that I talk about. What else? I am not in practice anymore. So part of my burnout was that I closed a practice last year. And so I work contract for a school doing evaluations. That's the current main gig. And I'm podcasting. I have therapist clients who I work with along who want to close their practice or that are super burnt out or that have lost a client and they need help with their grief. So that's what I'm doing today. And I play tennis and I teach fitness classes as well. And I have two boys. So it's my little intro.
I love that so much. And absolutely, yes. Every one of those podcasts gives you an outline, a topic. I think that it would absolutely be a great idea to turn those into CEU training.
Yeah, I think my business is like my business brain is like, I want the pipeline to like, go see you
Hmm.
to, but it doesn't have to. I know.
Well, no, the pipeline can also go podcast to link to the CEU. It can all work together as kind of an ecosystem. And since you're already building an audience, that's fantastic. Where are you in Maine?
Report.
Okay.
So if you know LL Bean, then that's
Yep,
their headquarters.
sure
That's where I
do.
live.
I've been
Yeah,
there
the big
many
old boot.
times.
You've been to the flagship campus?
Yes, yes, I have
Oh,
because
awesome.
we love Maine. It's somewhere that we go fairly often as family vacation. We usually end up in Booth Bay area
Oh
or,
yeah, it's beautiful.
so we drive up through Freeport, stop at LLB, and it's always a stop on our road trip.
Nice. Well, if you
Yeah.
stop, you have to say hello.
Okay. Definitely. All right, who's next? Rachel, we're just doing introductions since we've got a good mix of new people and existing people, and we're just doing a quick intro. So who wants to go next? Go ahead, Jackie.
Hi, I am Jackie Tyrell. I am not new, but I am a member that has been popping in and out since I don't know if it was from your founding or not, but for a few months now at least.
Definitely.
I am a private practice therapist. I am still in practice. My goal is to probably form a small little group practice that's kind of like really been slow moving over time, but I'm actually okay with that pace for the time being. And that in that time, I'm kind of like exploring other ventures such as CEU creation and just mental health courses for other providers and companies and things like that, being able to speak at corporate events or even at the smaller business level, be able to provide those kinds of trainings. So yeah, that's been a lot and what's been in my works as of right now. On a personal level, speaking of road trips, we're definitely, my husband and I are big road trip people. Although I think we decided on our last road trip that we were going to take a small little break from road trips and do a actual stay somewhere vacation because there can be a lot of work entailed in those road trips. But we enjoy that a lot. That's kind of what we do on our downtime when we have it. And yeah, it's me.
I love that. I'm so glad you're here. Do you have any road trips coming up?
So we actually are still on a quote unquote recovery from our last one. So we made a road trip to Minnesota. So we went to Indianapolis to Minneapolis, and then circling back around the north side of the United States, we cut through Chicago and some other of the smaller auxiliary cities along the way back. So I'm in north part of Maryland. Um, so yeah, that was a lot of driving. We will probably never drive as far as we did for that trip. We decided that was our max.
Mm-hmm.
Typically our road trips are like we've driven to Maine and back. That was beautiful. That was an ample amount of time where we got to see some of Boston and we still felt like we could
Mm-hmm.
take our time. So it was definitely a learning experience. We know that's our max. We're never gonna do that max again. We will technically, I don't know if you want to call it a road trip, but we're going to Cocoa Beach, Florida, where my mom actually has a place. And we're just staying there through the new year. So it'll be a little bit of a stay compromise where we're in one place, but we're driving.
All right. Love it. You can drive there and then you can just put
Yes.
down roots for a little
Yep.
bit.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Well, so glad you're here. Welcome. Who wants to go next? Rachel, are you ready?
Here, I can go next. I
Okay.
don't really know what we're supposed to be
Oh,
sharing,
we're just
but
doing
I
a
can
quick
just.
intro. Yeah, since some
Okay,
of us are meeting each other for the first time today, we've got some
sure,
new members coming in. So just a brief
gotcha.
intro. Tell us about you. Tell us a little bit about, what you like to do for fun and what you're working on as far as your CEUs.
Sure, sure. I'm Rachel. I'm a clinical psychologist. I am from Minnesota. Um, I am a certified EMDR therapist and a approved consultant, and I also do a lot of work around dissociation and the anchored relational model, formerly AIR network. I like doing intensives. I like doing individual work. I owned a practice with a colleague, just recently separated from that and started my own practice, a solo practice. And with that, I'm planning on more going the route of like helping other people learn how to have other streams of revenue and own practices and whatnot. So trying to work more on my creative place, which is why I started the CEU realm towards the change in my world of co-owning a group practice. Um, and so I am doing a CEU on EMDR and dissociation and how to help therapists be more aware of dissociation and how to navigate that while doing trauma therapy. And then also a one with Jackie here that we're creating. So, and then I have some other ones. Yeah, doing one on.
I love that so much. I love collaboration. So that makes my heart very happy.
And we have a question on it today. So
Okay. All
we
right.
do.
Perfect. I'm ready.
Um,
Not quite ready,
and
but we'll
then,
get there.
yep, yes, we'll get there. And then I have some other things. One kind of what Jen was saying, I decided to write a book because I just am crazy. Like when all of a sudden I have all this time, I like fill it with other things, probably something I need to talk to my therapist about. But I I wrote a book for like therapists coming into the field and what were the most important things for me to know as a therapist to help me conceptualize in the way I do now. Just things that I don't, I mean, like I was really blessed to have great supervisors, but um, individuals I work with oftentimes are like, I never learned that, or my supervisor didn't help me explore those different avenues, or just so I was like, maybe I can turn that into a CEU. So that will be my next maybe adventure. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what comes. So that's who I am.
All right. Love
Was
it.
a lot.
And Rachel, you have some really exciting news with your
Oh,
CEUs.
oh yeah. I was approved with social work board in Minnesota, so I have 8 credits, so that will cover the other one we're doing too. And then I was approved by EMDRIA, so as a provider, I still have to run my course through them, but so then I'll be able to have that on my EMDR one that I'm doing as well. So just waiting
Yay.
for the other boards now. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, Maria, would you like to go next? Hi, Maria. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm going to be in and out. Probably I'm waiting for a refrigerator to be
Oh,
delivered. I'm
okay.
kind of
That's
racing back,
important.
like I'm going to get there before they're done. I'm an LPC. I'm in Pennsylvania. I'm also in Georgia. I'm licensed in both states, so I spend the winters in Georgia. I worked in a nonprofit before becoming a therapist for 20 years with families in hardship and crisis, and then decided to go this route. I passionate about releasing rigid thinking and helping others do that. I'm a breast cancer survivor, and actually going through that treatment is what led me into a lot of my different other areas. So, for instance, I became certified in brain health through Amen Clinics and Amen University, and took a deep dive into that certification course for their practitioners because I wanted to get to cure myself of chemo brain. Um, and then I went to the School of Applied Functional Medicine to really get a lot more understanding about the root causes. And so I'm passionate about mind, body, mind connection. Um, I'd love to have a CEU. I'm trying to figure out exactly how that will work. I worked on some modules that is like a workshop that's separate for people, but not necessarily for practitioners I mean, for therapists to teach. At this point, the 2 areas I'm looking at, kind of testing the waters on, are the ethics and competency around the use of religion and spirituality in counseling. It seems kind of cool. I'm interested in how it's being used, and I thought, ooh, that could be a 1 hour ethics course. So I've started amassing some of those. And the other is a passion, and I think something we all work with, which is, of course, vagus nerve activation, and a way to make that work so that it's also CEU appropriate. So vagus nerve activation addressing anxiety, something.
Love all of that.
We'll see. So I'm
Yeah,
in the early stages. I've checked out what the Pennsylvania site looks like and the NBCC, and I'll be in and out, and I'm just
perfect.
celebrating all of you too. Congratulations to Rachel. That's really cool.
Uh,
Thank you.
Absolutely. So glad to have you. And, on a professional note, I will be here mentoring you, supporting you, helping you along the process. But from a personal note, I will be watching because I'm a breast cancer survivor too. And I have chemo brain as well. So it's real. I mean, I will just look at something and it's almost like I have to wait, for the little train to go around the track. Like I know what I want to say, but it's almost like my brain is just frozen. It's so frustrating. So, yeah, you may even see me occasionally be like, what's my word? So, yeah, I can't
Not
wait
a
to see
good
what you do with that.
strategy.
All right. And Hyacinth, are you here?
Yeah.
There we go. Hello, Hyacinth. Welcome. I see you're unmuted, but I can't hear you. Hmm. Okay, Hyacinth, I'm not sure if you're having trouble. with your sound. I saw you were unmuted for a little bit. I didn't hear you. Why don't we go ahead and get started with our Q and A's? And then, okay, just a sec. So Hyacinth, we'll go ahead and get started with our Q and A's, and then you can hop in and introduce yourself when it works for you. Okay. So who has questions, comments, feedback, anything?
Jackie and I have a question
Sure.
about collaborating.
Okay.
Did you want to ask it or do you want me to?
So yeah, and maybe you can help me make sure that I have this right. So we
The
are
two of you are collaborating on your questions,
yes,
which
We
I
are.
love.
we find ourselves collaboraling with all of it. We even
Okay.
said, how do we do this conclusion? Will you do it? Will you do it? Why don't we both do it?
Great.
Yeah, so what I was saying to Rachel was like as far as like the dividing up of revenue, one of the ideas that I had in my brain was that of course we would do it live first together where we would both come and present as co-presenters and co-writers of the course, and then it would be published for on demand. But then my idea was, what if there was a time where like we felt like we wanted to do another live, but like maybe the other one wasn't available. And so I like, for instance, I would like reach out to Rachel and I would say, hey, Rachel, are you available to do another live? There's an opportunity that came up and blah, blah, blah. And she wasn't available. So in that case, she actually pointed out that with the way it's being published, with both of us being presenters right now, that if we wanted to do it solo, it might not be possible unless we republish it as only one of us being a presenter.
That is a really great point. Okay. Now, is this is this through Minnesota, or who is this going to be through for your collaboration?
My hope was, because I'm a social worker, that I would do national level. And then so it would be NSAW or ASWB approved. I think Rachel was thinking that she could. I don't know if you were working on Minnesota level or another.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I could cover the Minnesota like LMFT psychology if we had the other two like national ones on, like if we got the two national ones. But the like my concern or question was, well, how would I do that? Because I'm not a social worker. And I was the only presenter. Like I know Jackie would be seen as
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that part's not a problem because Jackie
Okay.
is still your social work consultant. So when you do your NASW or your ASWB, she is the social work consultant. Even if Rachel, it's only you presenting, you're still totally fine. All she has to do is be part of the initial planning process. She does not have to be part of the presenting. The only thing that's giving me a little bit of pause is if it is approved with both of you, does that mean that you both have to be there for
That's
it
what I
to
was
be
wondering.
approved? Yeah, or does it just mean that you can both be there? That is a really good question. I've actually never seen that come up. So with Minnesota, I know you had to put in, it was a little bit different. We had to navigate it at the beginning because yours is up to 8 hours.
The social work. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, I get like increments for the social work.
And you've currently got it approved. Now, do you have to have your courses approved too?
Not for social work.
Okay.
I get 8 hours of CEU, so I have 3.5 for my first or my individual one that I'm doing, and then however long this one is, which probably will be less than 8 total. So that wouldn't be an issue. Yeah.
Yeah, so for that one, I wouldn't worry as much since you don't have to actually run it by them. Now that you're approved.
That's true.
But I'm thinking like when you do your ASWB or your NASW, it's going to be for a single course to be approved. And that single course is going to have both of your names on it. I'm kind of feeling in my gut like it might need to be a separate approval or maybe something that you're more available for once you have provider status. So like once you have ASWB provider status, you could do whatever you want. The two of you could teach it one day, the one of you teaches it the next day. You would just have to change your certificate every time to show who the presenter was. And also your evaluation, because the presenter is on the evaluation. So that's making me feel like if it's a single course, it has to be both of you, because your names are both on those documents. But once you are a provider, you don't have to get that stuff cleared. You just want to make sure that you keep a copy of, like, this was the certificate from when Rachel did it, because only her name is on it. Here's the evaluation from when Rachel did it on October 14th. Here's the one from where Jackie did it on October 27th. And here's the ones where we both did it. You'll just have to keep track of all that because
but would both of us need to get ASWB provider status for that to, yes, okay.
Well,
only if you're doing it. Like if you wanted to do it, you would have to have provider status for that to do it. So like if I wanted to just do it on my own and I had it approved through Minnesota but I would still have to go through and
yeah, you could still teach
that's really
Rachel under Jackie's, even if Jackie was the only ASWB provider, Jackie could still have a presented by Rachel training.
That's what I was wondering, because then she would be sort of 1099, maybe.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. And then the way you would work out you could work out the finances however you like. But when I collaborate with people, usually what I find is just the easiest is one of you handles the finances, and then you just pay out the other through PayPal and 1099 it. Just super simple. So yeah, like Rachel, you might be the lead person on, like, if you continue to do EMDRIA stuff, and maybe you do that together. Your name is on that. And then Jackie, your name is the one on the ASWB stuff, and you're just having each other present. But it's changing whose name is on the certificate is the main thing. Because then it would be like, Jackie, you'd be the certificate, the business across the top, but Rachel would be the presenter.
Yeah, because actually that's what my overall goal was, to have my business as the approved entity. And so my business is Ideal Progress. And so it would be technically Ideal Progress presents this course as written and presented by blah, blah, blah.
Absolutely. Okay. And Ideal Progress could have 10 different trainings taught by Rachel. Just you have to clear it, Jackie, as the social work consultant and as the CE director, make sure it meets all the criteria for social work, which means you add in that social justice piece is the main thing. Just something, touch on social justice or cultural competency. And then make sure you keep records of who's doing what, and you could just make a big spreadsheet or something. I think it would be absolutely fine. I'm making it sound more complicated than it would be.
No, my brain's
we are probably too, and I don't know if it will even get that far, but I wanted to like pitch it just in case, like like somebody sees that as an offering and they wanted it as a live, since live is still required as a social worker. It is possible that could be requested.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So just to remind me, like for the ASW, is that one where you have to, like, if it's as a single course, that's one thing, but if it's a provider, that's something different. So we wouldn't be able to do this until Jackie is a provider for it, right?
No, you could still do it as a single course. You need to
together.
Yes, you could still do it together as a single course.
It just
right.
Okay.
So ASWB requires that you do at least 3 live trainings before you can be a provider. So you could do, like, Rachel does one, Jackie does one, and you both do one. There's your 3. But you have to pay for those 3 separately, and you have to have them approved separately.
Yeah.
Got it.
Which means, Rachel, so I don't have prior live training, so this might need to be submitted individually at this point. And then once I get provider status, I imagine at that point I would need to then, would it need to be resubmitted, or?
However, hold on, Jackie, this is so cool. ASWB is a lot more flexible about this than NBCC, believe it or not. You do not have to have provided the CEs yourself like you do with NBCC. Your name does not have to be on the certificate. You could actually do it under Rachel's like under her in Minnesota, maybe you want to add some more credits or whatever. Or you could do it under your own state or whatever you want to do. And then once you've done 3, you can submit for ASWB provider status, whether they were approved for CEs or not.
Okay.
Now, NBCC, if you ever want to do provider status, you have to show, here's the certificate I actually gave someone with their name blacked out. Here's the approval number I had from another organization. ASWB is not like that. They want to know that you've taught 3 courses on topics relevant to social work.
Do they have to be 3 different courses?
Yes. Yeah. So I think this is a great thing to work towards. And it sounds to me like you're not wanting to build a business together, like be business partners on an LLC. You're just looking to collaborate with each other. So it makes sense to me that some of the approvals would be under Rachel's, some would be under Jackie's, but then you can just cross over and provide those CE credits for all of them. So like we've got Minnesota, we've got Emdria, we've got NASW.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Good. This is exciting.
It's fun.
Yes. So much fun.
Nothing like starting something brand new.
Mhm.
Doing it together, right? Trying to figure it out.
I love it. And you can divide and conquer. You know, you take care of this, I'll take care of that.
It's going to be our next venture, figuring that all out.
Yeah.
We're getting there.
You're getting there. Yeah, just think about where do we want to start? What do we want to do first? Probably just go ahead and do something under Minnesota. Like you said, Rachel, you were going to do one and then do one together. Start there since that's already approved. And then that also counts, Jackie, towards your 1 that you've done towards ASWB status.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks.
Who else has questions? Hyacinth, I see you're unmuted again. Does that mean you're ready to say hello?
Ready.
Hi. And then we'll get right over to you, Jen. We'll say hi to Hyacinth and then I've got you. Okay, Hyacinth. Hello. Nice to see you.
Yeah, so I'm
Welcome.
Hyacinth, starting to look at being a CE provider, mostly wanting to do stay-and-trade trainings, but also considering some other options. I
Love it.
do have time at an inpatient IOP for youth, and then have time private practice. And when I'm not working, I'm usually out somewhere with my camera doing nature photography.
I love that. And you know, CEs for working with youth are always needed because that's an area where there just aren't enough providers or enough providers with availability or, you know, on someone's panel. So for you to be able to provide those kind of skills would be really amazing.
Yeah.
If you're open to that.
Yeah. Yes. Starting out looking at a training that's more generic, but then different ages and special needs.
Wonderful. So we'll have to, as you're working on that, you know, we'll have to find that special sauce that makes it not generic, which I know you have because that's your unique experience and knowledge and what you bring to the table. And then, you know, so we can
being just an intro to Sandtrace with what the stages of a session in the style I use and how to conduct it and the list of figures you need, because I'm on some Sandtrace groups online and I'm appalled by people trying to do it with a Tupperware box of figures they keep under their couch. And that's not how you do this.
Absolutely. And I remember hadn't we kind of explored one more like the option of could you send out a little starter kit or something?
Yeah.
But I like the idea of a list, providing a list. Here's your bare minimum. And also teaching people that they don't have to buy a $600 sand tray. You know,
A lot of people are doing it with really inadequate collections, and you
Sure.
can't get deep stuff without doing it because I can see the room here.
Oh, yes. Yes, but teaching people how to start. You don't have to be
Yeah.
that to have that to start. That's amazing. I want to go play in there.
Yeah, so looking in part for it to draw the help with marketing and get my name out in the local community too.
Love it. That's great. Well, welcome. We're glad to have you.
Thanks.
All right, Jen, you had your hand up. You have a question?
Yeah, so I am just getting started. I have not looked at any materials. And so part of like my process is, do I even want to do CEUs? Because I do sell coaching, like part of my podcast. But I could see how CEUs could play into that because I think therapists could benefit from if I do have some kind of membership or some kind of offering in that way that they could, have that as part of whatever membership or part of like a product that I have. So, I mean, I think I've done some podcast CEU trainings that I'm not the provider for, like I've just, done those trainings. And I think again, some of the issues that I've talked about a lot on the podcast are around the issues of unilateral termination, especially from the aspect of the therapist. The therapist is burnout, right? Or leaving their practice, closing their practice, and has multiple terminations at once. And we don't really speak to a lot of how unilateral termination from the clinician perspective is not really addressed in our training. So I think looking at that, although I know it's something that my clients need, but maybe something that they won't identify that they need until they work with me when they're like, oh my gosh, I'm closing my practice. And I have to say goodbye to all these people I've seen for years. And so that's a lot of the clinical consultation piece that I do, but I think it could be of benefit. But would someone identify and saying like, I need that training? Woohoo, I want to learn how to do termination, said no one ever. They're like, I want to learn the EMDR or the, brain spotting or whatever training.
No,
like I think of
trust
me.
me. People do want to know this.
Okay. That's fair.
If you look in the Facebook groups, like constantly people are like, oh my gosh, how do I tell my clients that I'm closing my practice? States have laws about abandonment, but nobody really knows what that means. And I absolutely think that would be an amazing training that could be, yes, part of your coaching work and the other work that you do, but also a really good CEU, ethical, termination of treatment.
And then, another one could be like really the ethics of how to close a practice. So when I was closing my practice, I found like zero guidance. I messaged my board and they were like, they messaged me after I closed it, like months later, and were like, here's the copy of the rules for the state of Maine. And I was like, thanks. That's helpful.
Yeah.
Thanks, board. Now that I've already like lost my shit and oh, sorry, you're recording.
I don't care. I don't think anybody cares. It's okay.
Yeah, no one cares. We're therapists, right?
That's right.
Yeah, so I just had no guidance on any of that. And so I find that that's what people need me for. So they could take the training and do that on their own, perhaps. I find that they often need like the hand holding and my support through that. So it could be like, yeah, you could maybe take the course and have like minimal work with me, like a smaller amount, if that's just the piece you want. More they need the emotional support because it's just hard. And then the other one was clinical grief, which is another thing I talk a lot about because I lost 2 clients in the pandemic, which was probably a big piece of me, like unraveling and like closing and all that stuff. So not a lot out there in clinical grief either. So a lot of my brain works in things that like people don't train on.
Well, that's great.
Which is not a great marketing because people in marketing tells you like, find something that's good in the market and then do that thing because obviously there's a market for it. But
part of it is just really your copywriting and your words and your messaging.
Yeah. I think I'm a strong copywriter. So I think I'm good.
Clinical grief is huge.
Yeah.
Nobody knows how to navigate that. All we're told is you can't go to the funeral. Don't you dare send a card. Like basically we're taught to grieve in isolation and secrecy. And none of us know how to actually do it in a healthy way.
Yeah. And that's what I find with a lot of the, people that have written in from the podcast based on the few episodes. And I talk about it frequently on the podcast about those clients. So I think that one feels great to me, but that one I feel like, should I get like a grief certification? I nearly have my EMDRIA consultant, you know, so I'm an EMDR certified therapist, even though I don't use it anymore, but I'm nearly about to submit for my credentials consultant, which I'm like, I'm not using, but I guess I'll just do it because I was so far in the pipeline. Whatever.
Yeah, and you might want to add, that consultation at some point. It's another great little income stream if you want to. Yeah.
Well, maybe more like, do you have a framework to think through like which one feels like the best? Because I have a million ideas, right? So those are the three that stand out in the work that I'm doing now. But
yeah, I'm definitely picturing a lot of overlap. Like you could teach something for, that's more in a business consultation, type of realm, and maybe you're providing some one-on-one consultation alongside it. But then also with the CEUs, I really think they are all great ideas. Closing a practice gives me pause because if a therapist is looking at closing a practice, are they really looking for CEUs or are they looking at maybe letting their license go or letting so that one may not have as much traffic because I don't know. I just don't know. If I were
that makes
closing,
sense. I mean, because like my CEUs now that I take are very different because I work more as like a testing psychologist currently, like in my contract making money job.
Yeah. So the specific to closing the practice, I feel like that might be better suited for more of like a consultation, just maybe a more business minded kind of course.
Yeah.
But and the termination of treatment in general, so whether it's closing a practice, whether someone's not a good fit, whether you're going on maternity leave or you're changing jobs, like that's the type of thing I see therapists constantly saying, how do I do this?
Right.
So maybe
Yeah, I
just a
don't think we're given
bigger
a lot
picture.
of education, especially about the leavings that aren't socially prescribed. So I'm just leaving, closing my practice, and I don't really have a good reason. I'm not at retirement age, which was kind of my situation. Or folks that maybe their health is impaired and they're making a choice to not, to close their practice or to leave therapy altogether for those reasons, or just take a pause or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that would be really good. So when you talk through those two, the terminations, the, closing or the grief, which do you feel more excited about teaching about?
Both heavy. I feel more confidence in termination and like doing these kind of ethical workshops. I mean, I feel like my grief is pretty well processed. I've done a lot of EMDR work around my personal work on it and stuff. I feel like it's needed. I feel like, is that part of a mission? Maybe, just talking out loud, but
yeah, that's okay. Yeah. So NBCC is really the only one that allows for business type of topics. So if you took this from kind of a business standpoint of termination, closing your practice, etc., then NBCC would be probably your only choice. But if you made it more about a clinical, like protecting the clinical relationship, protecting your clients, having conversations in a way that keeps the therapeutic rapport intact as you refer them, that could be definitely CEs.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think general like unilateral termination, especially around, some of my folks also still want to be a therapist, but their burnout is around folks they're holding on to. Maybe they haven't looked at treatment goals in a while. Maybe they, the therapy is kind of stagnant. So they do need to address these issues more frequently because as, we get in our practice, we just kind of sit there with clients.
Yeah.
unfortunately. I think that was some of my, burnout was not referring clients out where I needed to refer. So I think some of it could be in a clinical context, certainly.
Oh, I think a lot of it could. Yeah. But what I'm saying is for the CEs, unless you're doing NBCC, they need to be. They need to be in that clinical realm, not the business aspects. It's okay if you talk about a little bit of the business stuff, but it in general, it needs to be for the benefit of the client, not the clinician.
Yep. Yeah.
So I think either one of those would be fantastic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
And as
thank you.
far as saying
Also,
like, I don't have a grief certification, that doesn't matter. You will need to show on your resume that you have experience and knowledge in teaching what you're
and I've
teaching.
taken grief training. It's just I don't have a cert around it, which
No,
is I
that's
think
okay.
what me is like the prolonged grief kind of that cert I thought about, but I'm not really using it clinically, but I'd use it with like consultation clients, but not in a therapy context, more coaching. But they need to do a deep dive, then I'm referring them back to therapy to do that work. But certainly talking about practices and stuff I do with coaching clients.
Okay. Yeah, so we'll have to pay attention when you're ready when you get to this step, we'll just have to pay attention to what your resume looks like, and maybe putting those grief trainings on your resume, whereas otherwise you may not. But what they're going to
Right.
do when they review your CE application is they're going to look at your resume and say, is she, an expert enough to teach about this? And so you want those grief trainings on there. You want with coaching, it gets a little tricky because in general they hate the word coaching. Coaching is kind of like the enemy to things like NASW. I know it shouldn't
But
be.
I think it also is in the realm of consultation, like
Yes,
doing,
that's what I was
I've
going to
done a
say.
lot of
Call it consultation.
yeah, because I think some of it has been in like clinical consultation, like you're impaired, you feel impaired by your loss, and you need support in order to do work with your client. So I think that
Absolutely.
semantics.
Semantics. Yeah, that just in general, coaching is a dirty word, which I don't think it should be. It is in our scope of practice, at least as social workers, it is. But yeah,
And
call
it
it
is, and
consultation.
I think APA's put out things that said, coaching is within the scope of a practice of a psychologist. So
Yeah, it's in the scope of practice, but it's usually on the list of like not allowed topics for CEs. I think
okay,
they
good to
just don't,
know.
they don't want people going out there and teaching therapists, how to open coaching practices because CEs are supposed to continue your clinical education.
Right, right.
Yeah, but there are
Yep.
definitely ways around that. So yeah, just a couple of things on the radar is looking at how you sort of position it and then looking at just making sure that your resume really brings that experience forward.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you. I have
Great.
a
You're
2 o'clock,
welcome.
just so you know, so I
Okay.
might have to pop off
Yeah, no
here.
problem. So just so you know, I usually allow 90 minutes for these, but we don't always stay 90 minutes. A lot of people will jump off. That's absolutely fine.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for being here. Anybody else have any questions, comments, concerns, things you need feedback on?
Not a question or comment or question. It is a comment. So a while back, I had presented the case of making CEs for other professionals such as physical therapists, nurses, etc. And so I kind of made a little bit of a understanding headway on that.
Oh,
I
good.
think we were both like unsure of how that would proceed. I don't know how to speak to like all states. From what I cannot find a national coverage. It doesn't seem to be the same as like NSAW, for instance. It doesn't seem to be a national covering entity for like physical therapists. But what I did find, two different layers here. I can only speak more towards physical therapists because this was like where I was operating under anyway, and I imagine it would probably be pretty transferable to other professions. But for physical therapists in the state of Maryland, you can actually submit to have CE approval the same way as you would in like in your own state for like your own like as a social worker. You go, so you would normally Google like there's keywords attached to like physical therapy, continuing education approval. Like, so it took me a few tries to get exactly where I needed to be. But in the state of Maryland, there is a way to submit where you describe what your course is, the objectives, the amount of CEs you're aiming to get approved. And I don't know if you submit the actual course outline at this point because I haven't reached that far. But from what I gather, it's the same equivalent process where you're submitting the objectives, the course idea, the amount of time that you're allowed to get approved. And I see on their on their past approved list, there's other social workers that have been approved. So social workers have already been doing this. And then what somebody told me too, that if you get stuck in that process for some reason, if you can't get pre-approved for a CE, what a lot of physical therapists can do is they can retrospectively submit courses to be CE approved, and they say they do that a lot. So they would need the copy of the outline of from the course and the proposed amount of time, and then they can retrospectively submit it. So maybe just two different ways. Like if you still want to, like teach classes to other professionals, there does seem to be a way, at least on the physical therapy side, that you can get pre-approved for the CE. If you get stuck in that, those professionals are used to submitting retrospectively for those CEs.
Wow. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you're saying that someone, if it is a applicable topic, could even be able to um, go back, bye, Jen, go back and get something approved
Mm-hmm.
that they've already presented even?
Yes.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, I was looking into education and I found it very confusing. There are a couple kind of certifying, but I think like everything else, it's going to come down to your state. So always look at that state board for that profession. So for instance, you were looking at Maryland physical therapist.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't know where to start with your own state.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah.
Yeah,
And
I didn't find anything national. Doesn't I mean
yeah.
even like the few physical therapists I talked to didn't seem to know if there was national coverage. So it may be just a state thing when it comes to physical therapy. Now
Mhm.
there probably is. I imagine there has to be national coverage for nurses and doctors.
Yes, and one thing I do know for nurses is that you do have to have a nurse that you're working
Okay.
with. Just like we talked about with you and Rachel working together side by
Mhm.
side, like you would need a nurse that you partner with.
Mhm.
And then same for medical as well. You have to have, I believe, a physician or someone in the medical field.
Yeah. I don't know if that's true for this physical therapy because it looks like there were courses published solely by social workers that didn't have any physical therapist names attached to the course. Um, and the only other question that I would have in that realm is I didn't see any other titles other than social workers. I didn't see LLPC or, any like psych or other licensures. I only or LGPC, whatever the other ones. I can never remember them all. But
Yeah.
I only saw LSCWs on those, so I don't know if that's just like those other licensed therapists aren't just doing them, or if they're not able to. That's a question I don't know how to answer.
Hmm. Okay, well, you got to start and
Yeah.
finding it out. That's great. That's something a lot of people ask about. How do I expand this to nurses, to physicians, to physical therapists, even
Mhm.
to attorneys? We have someone here in the membership who is also an attorney. So, yeah, just going back to each profession, each state, finding out what their requirements are. I have also, here's another option that could come into play. But I have spoke several times for physicians who they were already a medical CE provider. So they provided the CEs. I didn't have to do that. They just had me come in as a speaker and they paid me an honorarium. So that's another option too. If you can get a foothold, do some networking and have someone bring you in to train.
Cool. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, without
Yeah.
so if you can find a physical therapist who is already a CE provider and say, hey, can I come in and teach a training?
Yeah, that's definitely another option. I haven't explored that avenue yet.
Yeah, you could probably just Google,
sure.
CEs for physical therapists in Maryland and just start looking around at who's offering them.
I did get a lot of really positive just encouragement for other people that might be considering this. I did get a lot of positive feedback from the physical therapist that I was speaking to saying they do not get any level of mental health training. So just like if that inspires you to create for physical therapists is something just keep in mind.
Absolutely. Or any service profession, Love that. Okay, I can't wait to see where you go with that. Keep us posted.
Oh, and it also seems to be a little bit more flexible. I can talk about mindset. There seems to be a handful of already published mindset courses. So like there doesn't seem to be that limitation that like NSAW has where you have to leave mindset out or you have to like cleverly you can actually call the course mindset of blah 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 or mindset to whatever.
So if anybody out there is listening and has no idea what Jackie means by that, as you get into these, you'll see that some of the organizations are really strict about what you can teach about. And some of them, like NASW, for example, they don't like mindset, mindfulness, meditation, but there are ways to work around it. Like for mindset, you could simply talk about cognitive distortions or, and you can still do it. You just have to kind of put a little spin on it that makes it sound more evidence-based. Mindset is really just changing negative thoughts, positive psychology, meditation or mindfulness, you can call nervous system regulation or somatic interventions or, so there's lots of ways, even just tools for calm and coping skills. There's just certain buzzwords they don't like. And a reason I kind of hit on that a lot is because that is the one thing that will get your application thrown out without a refund. That is the one way you will lose your money is if you choose a topic that's on their do not list. So that's important. And if it is on the do not list, you can still teach about it. You just have to spin it a little bit. And I'm good at that if anybody needs help with that. Anything else? Any other questions? I'm just looking right here at since we have a lot of new people, the NASW, their list of not allowed topics is so unbelievable. I'm not going to find it quickly enough, but very strict. Last I looked at it, I think even polyvagal theory was on there as a not allowed. Bye, Rachel. So, all right. Anything else? Hyacinth, Jackie?
No, I think we covered all the bases we were hoping to cover today.
Wonderful. Good. Okay. Well, I will see everybody in the Facebook group and the Voxer chat. Just reach out to me and bye, Hyacinth, and we will talk soon. Okay.
Okay.
Have a great day. Bye.